we open wide the virtual stage where ideas spark and wisdom fills the page. From the UK to the land of maple trees, John and Mike bring clarity with ease. We're building meetings, webinars with might, helping you shine, your message taking flight. Whether you're new or you've done this before, Lord Zoom Live will help you do much more. We're building meetings, webinars with might, helping you shine, your message taking flight. Whether you're new or you've done this before, Lord Zoom Live will help you do much more. Thank you for joining us, we're glad you're here. Together we grow, it's loud and clear. On Zoom we connect, we learn, we grow. Welcome my friend, enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome to Lord Zoom Live. I have a guest with me today. Now, like me, he's not a Zoom employee, but he is a Zoom expert and he knows a heck of a lot about Zoom Phone. And so this is Lord Zoom Live, Lord Zoom Phone Live. We will see what we can squeeze into an hour. I have a feeling there is much more. We could probably be on a week and Elliot would still be talking because he's packed with knowledge about Zoom Phone. Me, I'm not so good at Zoom Phone. So I've got my notes just to make sure that I can keep all the things going. So before I bring Elliot to the stage, we need to have a short history lesson. Once upon a time, somebody invented a phone. Do you remember those days? No, of course you don't. It was very, very, very long ago. And the phones used to run down cables and then they would get to some sort of switchboard and those switchboard will plug into another cable and it would run down another cable and appear at somebody's phone. But since the internet turned up, a clever chap had an idea. Why have all those cables running around the world when we could use the internet to put phone calls through? Now, wherever you are in the world, things are at different levels. But a lot of countries have an enormous mobile phone network, and that runs via radio. Many people have a copper phone network using the old copper cables of what I've just described. But there are many people now, and this includes you in the UK, who are being converted to telephones running down the internet. And yet you don't know it because the world seems the same. Well, it is the same, except that now, and actually they've been around for years, but you never knew, companies can now create software to connect phones to that telephone network. And not wishing to be left out and thinking it is a really cool idea, Zoom is one of them. So you can have a Zoom phone. Sound exciting? I hope so, because that's what we're going to be talking about. So with a bit of help from Elliot, we're going to go through the basics of how Zoom works with Zoom Phone and how you can use it. We're going to talk about it. We might demonstrate a few things, but mostly we're going to talk about it because I want you to get the idea of what's possible with Zoom Phone. And whether you're a person on your own, a solopreneur, a small business with 10 or 15 users, or an organization with hundreds of thousands of users. Just like the other versions of Zoom, Zoom Phone will work for all of you. So welcome to the stage, the wonderful and the charismatic and jolly handsome Elliot Steele Robinson.
Thank you very much, John.
That's all right. So this Zoom Phone is in the Zoom app, just like the rest of stuff that we have with Zoom.
That's correct. But in addition to being in the Zoom app, it also is in things like desk phones that can also be used with Zoom Phone.
Okay. So Zoom Phone is a piece of software. It works within Zoom, but you can use your Zoom Workplace app. And if you have a penchant for real phones, there are a range of real phones that you can plug into it as well. So it does, in all intents and purposes, look just like a standard, what we used to phone system.
That's true.
That's amazing. And then it has, you can allocate telephone numbers to it so people can call you.
You can get telephone numbers from Zoom, or you can port your telephone numbers from your existing carrier to Zoom. So if you need to keep your existing numbers, in general, you can keep your existing numbers.
Okay. And then the weird thing, I say weird because it's weird from the standard world, because it's an internet-based system like Zoom is, the weird thing that you have to get used to is that if I have my phone in my office, doesn't mean I have to physically leave that phone or that office. Your phone works wherever you are in the world if you're connected to the internet. So if you have Zoom running on your mobile phone, just to confuse people even more, that phone will go with you. But if you had a desktop version of Zoom running with Zoom Phone, and you took that desktop and moved it to another building and logged it back in, that phone number and your login would move with you. So you can literally take your phone wherever you like. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So that might be a little bit weird for people. A little bit more weird for people might be the same issue that I have, that I quite often log in to multiple machines around my office, depending on what I'm doing. And if I do that, and that account has my Zoom phone number in it, that moves with me as well, doesn't it?
That's true.
So this is telephones, but not maybe as many people have thought about it because of this flexibility of being able to move around due to the internet. So if I have 25 people in my business, Elliot, which would be lovely, but I don't think they'd all fit in the room, but never mind. If I had 25 people in my building, I probably wouldn't want 25 telephone numbers. I'd probably want one telephone number or maybe two, and then 25 people would, how would they be able to share those telephone numbers? How would that work?
There are a number of different ways to share those telephone numbers. The calls could come in to the Zoom phone system and then be routed by the Zoom phone system to a call queue. And all of those other members of your company could be members of that call queue.
Okay.
So that when call came in, depending upon how you wanted to set it up, it could ring all of the people. It could ring in a sequential manner. In other words, it would just go from one person to another person that was not already on a phone call, or it could be on the person who has been idle for the most length of time. So there's a number of different ways it could be done. In addition, some companies, I recently did a bank in New Jersey, and they had 400 employees, and they wanted all 400 employees to have a direct inward dial number so that customers could reach any of those employees. Sometimes it's a mix. Some of the employees will have their own phone number, and some of them will only have an internal extension. But Zoom has the flexibility to accommodate whatever works best for your situation.
Okay. So in a way, you could think of this like you have your own PBX or your own telephone system or your own telephone exchange, whatever people understand by those different terms, or your own switchboard even. Zoom is giving you that facility that you have control, and then you can allocate telephone numbers, you can allocate where calls go, and you can then run the whole organization behind that system. So it's not just a telephone number, it's a telephone exchange within your own business. And I suppose that therefore, again, because of the internet, that doesn't mean it has to be one building. You could be multiple buildings all around the world and it would still work together.
Yes, there's some multinational companies who have their Zoom phone that they're using throughout the world. And if they want to call from China to the UK on that phone system, it's just a free call. And when you do make that call, the call quality is like the person is in the next office to you, and it's a free call.
Of course, because it's within your own it's within your own exchange. So all calls within your exchange, wherever your users are going to be free.
Yes.
Okay, so if you've got a multi-office system now, where you quite often have to make calls between offices, and you've been charged because you've gone out onto the main system, whatever it is, depending which country you're in. When you've got Zoom Phone, even though you're virtually all over the place, as far as Zoom's concerned, you're all in one place and you can make calls to each other at any time, and it's always going to be free because you're just calling within the Zoom Phone network.
Yeah, there is a slight enhancement to that, in that Zoom has something called Nomadic E911. In the United States, it's 911. In other countries, it's called something else.
Yeah.
But Zoom knows where you are. If you're in building number 1 on the 3rd floor, when you make that call, Zoom knows that you're in building 1 on the 3rd floor. So if emergency services needs to come to you, they know that they need to go to that particular building on the 3rd floor. On the other hand, perhaps you're an educational institution and you have your own security force. And what you want is that if emergency services needs to come, that emergency services will be met at the university's entrance by the security services of the university and taken to that particular location. Or if that's not the way you want it, it could be that it simply goes to the emergency services department and they handle it. So you have a lot of flexibility.
That's amazing. I have looked into that. When you're setting up your Zoom settings, you can register everybody and you can say where they are, their physical location, so that when there's an emergency, they know how to contact those people and where they are physically. It's
yes,
very well sorted.
It's also called nomadic because maybe you've gone to another floor or another building, and the way that Zoom figures out where you are is that if you're connecting via Wi-Fi, it knows where that Wi-Fi access point is located, and thus it can tell the emergency services people that you're at that location. If you're out of that community, that university setting, and maybe you're, eating at a restaurant or something, if you called emergency services or 911 or whatever the code is in the country you're located in, then automatically Zoom defaults to whatever that mobile location is.
Okay. So if I want to make a call to somebody and they're remote, I would usually call their mobile. But of course, if they have installed Zoom on their phone, rather than having to use their mobile phone contract and phone externally to that mobile phone, I can just phone them through their Zoom phone and it will pick up the call.
That is true. I had a friend of mine who was visiting China and he dialed my extension in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the U.S., and it sounded like he was, in the next office or something, not in China. It was amazing.
If you want to, and that's up to you, but if you do want to divert calls to a mobile phone, it is possible. But for the reasons that I suggested, maybe you don't want to do that too often. There's a
Yes.
whole call handling thing, isn't there, Elliot, about you can set your office hours and set rules and things like that so that calls react differently depending on the time of day that the call comes in.
It's not only the time of day, but is this a holiday period, or is it Saturday and Sunday, and maybe your office doesn't work on Saturday and Sunday? So it can have different hours that you're available, and if you're not available, it can then route your call to voicemail, or if it's an emergency, I could route it to some other number, maybe the software engineer that's on duty during the weekend that can help you would get your emergency call. So you have tremendous amounts of flexibility.
Okay. This one's going to be a bit tricky because the rules are different in different countries, but can you explain how SMS texting would work within the Zoom phone network?
As you mentioned, the rules are different. In North America, the rules in the United States are different from the rules in Canada, as an example. In the United States, there is a consortium of mobile operators who require that anybody who wants to use a VoIP system, such as Zoom, is required to register and has to provide some information, has to have features that allow somebody who's getting that text message to say, stop, don't send me any more. It also requires that the business provides information such as their privacy practices. Other countries, it's different. And I'm only a little bit familiar with the United States, and I'm not familiar with how other countries handle it, but I only can guess that they probably have something similar, but maybe not the same.
Yeah. So technically, Zoom phone works with SMS beautifully, but because of the spamming opportunities that have been obvious to all of us, because we've all had them, Zoom has implemented some rules and some regulations and opted in with some, especially in the US, with a system that means that you've got to jump through a few hoops, but that's only because Zoom is not going to let anyone get a Zoom phone number and then start SMS texting everywhere. So it is there to protect both the users and the customers and the receivers of text messages. And that's why it's a little bit more complicated, maybe, in setting up for people. It's not Zoom, it's the policing of the Zoom phone that works it. But of course, there's a couple of other things you can do with Zoom phone that you can't do with a normal phone so well. We've already mentioned, or you already mentioned, voicemail, but you've also got the ability to record calls and get transcripts of calls.
You have two options in terms of recording calls. One option is an automatic call recording. And in the banking world, it's frequently used where a customer is talking to somebody in the wire transfer area. And so they want every single call to be recorded. There are other cases where it's only a requirement to do it on an ad hoc basis. And so you can do it on an ad hoc basis, and you can turn off call recording or turn it back on as is required. In terms of transcripts, Zoom Phone has the ability to provide live transcription of Zoom calls. Zoom does not retain these transcriptions. However, Zoom also has implemented something that they call AI Companion. And if you enable AI Companion on Zoom Phone and you enable it on your phone call, it will summarize your call and also list any tasks that have been discussed and who is supposed to do these tasks. And the idea here is Zoom has decided that a system of action should increase efficiency from the standpoint that if you discuss something on your Zoom phone and George agrees to do something and Tom agrees to do something and Mary agrees to do something, you will have a record of who is supposed to do which tasks. And so it makes it much easier to follow up because most humans, especially older humans like me, have a hard time remembering everything that was discussed because maybe this was a meeting that went on for an hour and many different subjects were discussed, and the ability to extract a nice summary and also a listing of who's supposed to follow up on various tasks that may have been agreed to at that meeting.
That's brilliant. We suffer that feature. I say suffer because it usually ends up with me having a big long to-do list, but we have that feature in Zoom meetings and it's always fascinating. Mike and I have had meetings and been very interested to find what the list of to-dos we had given to us as well. So people may be thinking that this system is really good for sales, outgoing sales and incoming sales and things like that. So I suppose we better mention that Zoom Phone doesn't just exist on its own. There are a number of products, but I think probably the one that people would be most interested in hearing about in this context is Contact Center, which is a app that runs alongside Zoom Phone and allows you to run, as it sounds, a contact center. Would you like to introduce that concept to us, Elliot?
Yeah, with respect to Zoom Contact Center, this was developed by Zoom a couple of years ago. And what they have added is how they describe it is an omni-channel contact center. An omni-channel means that maybe it's voice, meaning that what it's connecting to is voice telephone, but it can also do other types. It can do chats, it can do emails. And the idea is that with the Zoom Contact Center, you have the ability to handle incoming contacts from prospects and also customers, and could be vendors, it could be all sorts of different entities that are calling, and the ability to interface that contact center with your own knowledge base, with your own CRMs, allows that contact center agent to provide pretty robust solutions to people who are calling in, emailing, chatting, whatever. It could be SMS, whatever. And so today, Zoom Contact Center is on a par, and in some cases, I've been told exceeds the capabilities of some of the very well-known contact centers like Genesis, Five9, and TalkDesk. So it also has an integration with Zoom Phone. So if a contact center agent needs to put that call over to a subject matter expert in a particular department, they can transfer that call to Zoom Phone. If they want to, they can also have a Zoom meeting. They have all sorts of possibilities in terms of using all of Zoom's various mechanisms. It also will provide interfaces so we can take the conversation from agent number one and put it in to some kind of a database. Maybe it's Salesforce or whatever. And so maybe agent number one was not able to resolve all of it, and then it had to be escalated to agent number two. Rather than have that person who is calling in having to repeat everything that they said to agent number one, when agent number two gets it, they have a complete record of what was said, plus they have the access to all of the information that's in their CRM. So it's a very sophisticated system. It's also pretty easy to program how you want that contact center to operate. It uses a visual presentation, so you can show, okay, the call comes in, it then goes to an auto attendant, or maybe it goes to a call queue. They also have skills-based routing. So if the person who's calling in says, I want to talk about, fashion dresses or something, it can then connect that person with somebody in sales, or maybe it's in marketing or whatever. So it has those kinds of features. And one of the banks that I worked on, they put in something that was one step below a contact center, and that's what Zoom now calls Zoom Phone Customer Engagement Pack. And the Customer Engagement Pack is less expensive, but of course has less features. But it for this particular bank, they only had 10 contact center agents, and it worked extremely well for them. They also got a large dashboard that told them what the status was of the calls that were being processed. How many people are waiting? What is the average wait time? How many calls were abandoned, which is a bad thing. But whatever, it gave this call center manager good information on what was happening. Zoom has gone much further than this. They also have workforce management, which has to do with how are you scheduling your agents? Some companies have agents that work 7 days a week. Not the same agent, but they're, obviously multiple agents. There are also things about, well, how well did that agent do in handling this call? So it actually looks for things that would affect your net net promoter score. Are they antagonizing the customer, or are they doing a great job explaining to them and helping the customer. And it can do all sorts of things like that.
That's amazing. Okay, let's bring it back a bit to the smaller business. But as you said, contact center will work if you've only got a small team. Even if you've got 4 or 5 or 6 people, it's still an effective product. And I've looked at the pricing, and you're right, it is really competitive compared to other products. But even if you're not going to use contact center, you can still take your contacts and you can put them into Zoom Phone, can't you? Wherever they came from.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I don't think I mentioned, and that was that in Zoom Phone, if you've got your contacts in an email system such as Gmail, you can turn on a couple of switches, and now your Gmail contacts are now available to you in Zoom Phone. And when you're calling somebody, instead of putting in their phone number, you could put in their name or a piece of their name, and then you just click it and you're connected.
That's fantastic. So not only can you put your calendar from Gmail into Zoom, you can put your contacts and then you can phone them through Zoom.
Yep.
And it all works really easy. And if you have a CRM of any other flavor, then you can import the data. I know this because it's a not infrequent question that we get on the developer side. There's lots of developers who are writing apps for Zoom Phone to bring data in from other places or send it back out again afterwards. There's some pretty good software though built into Zoom, as you've already discussed, Elliot, with the to work out the efficiency of your team and how many calls they're making and stats like that. That's already available within various packages of Zoom, but there are developers who have taken it and they've put it back into the CRMs.
Absolutely. And the other thing I think to remember is that if you're trying to increase the effectiveness and efficiency of your staff members, if you can give them a good communications tool, you can increase their effectiveness and efficiency, which is probably offsets by expense that you're paying to implement a system such as Zoom.
Yeah, definitely. If you're going to have a sales team and they've got targets, the one thing you don't want them doing is wasting time. You want them doing calls, and with Zoom Phone, you've got the ability to basically to automate that whole system so they can just spend their time making calls or receiving calls. They've got transcripts to help them train. You can record calls. And by the way, Zoom does protect your privacy. So if you have a recording, the person at the other end will get a message, which you can customize, to tell them that the call's being recorded. So the privacy is being retained. But it's a very powerful tool that I know a lot of corporates are using for their call centers. And the data you get out is just amazing. And there's nothing better for the CEO than having a big screen on the wall with all the numbers of calls, and then somebody else has already added the number of sales, and everybody can be proud at the end of the day. They've all worked hard and they've all sold hard and the business has done great.
And the other piece of that is that if you have some agents that need training, you can provide that training to them to increase their effectiveness. And
am I right, Elliot? I think that there's a sort of a helper function. So if you're a line manager, you can listen into what your employee is saying, and you get a recording of their end of the story, so you can train them, but you don't get the privacy. You don't have the privacy problems of the other person.
Yeah, you have Zoom Phone and, of course, Zoom Contact Center. Both have features that allow you to, with permissions, monitor a call, meaning you can listen to the call. You can whisper to the agent. Whisper to the agent means that your conversation with the agent is not heard by the customer or the prospect. You can also have it where that, let's say, the manager of that agent has the ability to take over the call. Maybe the call is not going well and they need to take it over. They can do that. So you have another one just before that is something called barge, which means it's kind of like a three-way call. So
Okay.
it's the manager, the agent, and the prospect or the client on the call. So you have all of those kinds of abilities and features as well.
I knew it was pretty good, but even I'm getting now thinking there's some features I haven't used yet on Zoom Phone. I really need to get them sorted out soon.
Well, one of the things is that because Zoom is enhancing all of their products on at least a monthly basis. It is, people were satisfied when they purchased a Zoom Phone a couple of years ago, but
Yeah.
now Zoom Phone is even more advantageous from the standpoint that it has so many more features that are useful. And a lot of these features are coming in because some of Zoom's even smaller companies, but certainly a Zoom client that has over 250,000 users probably has almost every use case that you can imagine.
Yeah.
And so in order to accommodate these large businesses, they have added a lot of features, which can be very useful.
Yeah. I think people, well, there's a lot of people that will make complaints and say, well, Zoom doesn't do this, Zoom doesn't do that. Well, I can tell you, because I've been in the loop many times, Zoom takes really close attention of what people say and what people suggest. And there is a heck of a lot of Zoom development that happens just because people make requests about things and they say, oh, do you realize that X can do this? Zoom are really keen to just keep adding features that they find the business case for. They're not standing still. They're not resting on their laurels. They're always really keen to find new features. The fascinating thing for me, Elliot, is sometimes they release a feature and it takes me a week to try and realize why the feature is there, because they don't always explain exactly what use case it was for. They just bring out a feature and then they just say, okay, guys, this is the new feature. See what you can do with it.
That's a shame. On the other hand, I won't turn down their new features, but yes, a use case would be helpful, particularly for existing clients.
Yeah.
And really, when I think about it, for prospects and new clients, because maybe this is a feature that they have some kind of a workaround for. And they might be able to do things in a more streamlined fashion if they knew that this particular feature existed.
Yeah.
But it's most of the features, I would say 99% of the features are documented. Some of the ones that just were released, they have them documented in release notes. But that's not the same as, a detailed support article that tells you exactly how to implement it and what are the use cases for those features.
Exactly. But I'll let you into a secret. I think that approach, although it's a bit frustrating, Zoom creates new features. And as you've seen, all these new things that have turned up from Zoom. And we had a meeting about Zoom Scheduler, 3 weeks ago, was it, Mike? I can't remember now, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I know, because I was in the Zoom developer loop, I know that the features of group meetings and having a group of people you could schedule a call with was all because of feedback from users who said that wasn't available. And I know of a couple of examples in the Zoom phone space where, again, people said, oh, we can't do this type of routing. And Zoom added that feature. So Zoom has this policy of, if they think something is a good idea, they'll just create it and release it. And then they wait for us to see what imaginative ways we can make that particular feature work. And of course, I could change hats, put my developer hat on, because there are so many features in Zoom Phone and Zoom Contact Center that programmers are now writing apps for. Maybe to run an app inside Zoom Workplace, or quite often taking data from Zoom Phone and putting it into Zoom CRM connected apps. There is a lot of work done with Salesforce. I know there's a lot of work done with HubSpot, but if you have a CRM that Zoom doesn't know about, there are plenty of coding opportunities to link that up. And in the world of marketing and contact centers, this is a big world now. This is the way businesses work. And if you had a group of sales teams and they were working from home, you can do it with Zoom. You don't have to physically bring them into the office. You can bring them in virtually. Now, I have noticed a question. And I think I've almost started talking about it. So I'm going to backtrack because Elliot's much better at explaining this. So this is the question, Elliot. If Zoom Contact Center agents are working from home, what does Zoom provide to allow agents to see the status board that is classical for a physical call center, e.g. stats with info, how many calls waiting, etc., and how many calls being accelerated to other support lines? Have we sort of answered that?
I don't know the answer to that. I do know that Zoom Contact Center has those kinds of status boards. Some of them are put on a separate monitor.
Yeah.
Look, if you have a room of agents, it might have a great big display showing the whole room what it is. My guess is that I suspect that it is available, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, so you're almost confirming my theory as well, which is I believe that they are web-based displays, and therefore, if the call center person wanted to run it on a screen or have it on a display on their Chrome browser, they could see the stats there and watch it there. So it's not.
I think so. I think probably what would be a great one of your great presentations would be on the Zoom Contact Center because it is phenomenal. Zoom has gone over the last maybe 3 or 4 years from very basic to very sophisticated contact center, omni-channel, and they are competing with the best in the world. And some of the people that are on other contact centers are switching over because Zoom now has features that nobody else has, and also the amount of AI that's integrated into contact center. So I think it would be, Zoom Phone is great, and I love Zoom Phone, but my God, when you get to Zoom Contact Center, this is Zoom Phone customer engagement pack, all on steroids. I mean, it can do just about anything that you want to. And I believe that anything that you wanted, you would be able to see as an agent. And not only for the agents, but I suspect in this day and age that some of the contact center managers are also working remotely and
Yeah.
would also want to have a full picture as to exactly what's going on. And, do we need to bring in additional staff? I think we've all experienced it. Well, sorry, your waiting time is unusually long because we have a large volume of calls. Some of these systems, and I suspect that Zoom is one of them, say, well, in addition to the traditional agents, we'll take some of our subject matter experts and we'll throw them into some call queues on the contact center because we don't want people to have a long wait time before they can get their answers. And if it isn't there today, I'm sure it will be there in short order.
Yeah. I think that Zoom Phone is a slam dunk for me. I think the whole idea of the product being for, and I'm let's talk about the least profitable market, the 2 or 3 person type business who are probably using a version of Zoom Meeting to do a bit of marketing and selling. If you upgrade to Zoom Business, you get a lot of the Zoom Phone features for a very small amount of money. And you don't really need you might want to convert your mobile phones to just a data plan and then just run all your calls through Zoom Phone, because you don't really need a mobile phone number when you have a mobile virtual telephone system provided by Zoom, whether you are 1 people, 5 people, or 50 people. I just honestly, I just think it's such a good value. And I have looked at the whole idea, Elliot, of we probably do no more than 2 days worth of sales in a month in my organization. And most of it I do myself. But I've looked at the numbers and it would make sense for me just on my own to use Zoom Contact Center, so that those days when I am doing sales, I would be far more efficient and I would be able to see the stats rather than at the end of the day go, well, I think that went well. I've got a few sales. I would get much more data. And
Yeah,
if
well,
you are hiring salespeople.
absolutely. One of the concerns for small companies implementing contact centers is not only the monthly fees for the agent and the managers and whatever, but is the implementation cost. I can tell you, I also have Zoom Contact Center on my account, which I use for Zoom for Government. And I wanted to see how easy it was or how difficult it was for a novice to set up Zoom Contact Center. It took me a couple of days, but I was amazed at how easy it was. It was designed to be easy to implement. And it was, anyway, it's easy. And I think that a lot of people that understand SIP technology and some contact center information would be able to set up a Zoom contact center with some technical help.
Sounds like you're throwing a challenge, Elliot. Sounds like we're going to have to develop from our Zoom webinar challenge to a Zoom telephone challenge.
Yes. But it's, I think that's one of the reasons why some people are moving from some of the industry standards, if you will, for contact centers to Zoom, because you have so much more flexibility and so much greater ease of setting something up. It's amazing. And happy to show you what
Well,
it looks like.
I think we will have to take that challenge on and work through that. Um, Zoom for dentists and Zoom for doctors is something I could really appreciate, because both of those things in the UK are really bad experiences. And I know that in the UK we're having a big argument at the moment about access to doctors, and uh, I don't think the organisations that are trying to fix it are selling Zoom, and I think they should be. Or we'll just have to kick them out and put Zoom in instead. We've
Yeah,
got
I
another
think
question.
I think
Sorry,
in that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've got another question here for you. Unless you want to say anything on that before I go on.
No, no, no. Let's go.
Okay, so I've got a question here about. Actually, it's a good question. Thank you, Robert. So we talked about earlier about the agents and the automation and the AI, but we didn't. We sort of just sort of skirted around it. Can we can we maybe give a bit more detail of how the uh, the AI and the agent and the contact center and AI companion, how they all sort of work together, and how you get the knowledge into it without getting too deep? Is that possible?
Yes. What some people have done with getting, in quotes, the knowledge base into a contact center is to take whatever they currently have for a knowledge base. Maybe it's not called a knowledge base. Maybe it's called, I don't know, systems and procedures, or maybe it's, it's user guidelines, or it's agent guidelines. But at any rate, if you can take that information in and then using an AI system like an expert system or even a large language model, you can then create for agentic AI, you can create agents that are designed to deal with certain types of contact center inquiries. One example that I saw at one of our trade shows called Enterprise Connect was that Zoom was demonstrating their Zoom contact center. And the contact center was for a Thai food shop, restaurant, and that Zoom contact center for the Thai food shop had, among other things, it had the menu. So
Wow.
the menu had, the name of the food, it had a description of the food, it had the price, whatever. Beyond that, it had other types of information, such as it could do billing. So at the end of your order, it would say, well, according to my records or whatever, you've ordered this, this, and this, and the pricing of this is so much for this, so much for that. The total amount is X number of dollars. If there was tax, there was tax. If you wanted to include a tip or something, you could do that. And then it would take you off on the side to actually do a credit card transaction. And so the credit card would be processed, and then they would come back and say, yes, your credit card was processed successfully, and the delivery person is on his way to deliver your meal, or if you're going to pick it up, it's ready to be picked up, or it'll be ready to pick up. And it went through everything, and it was really amazing at how good it was. It was certainly as good as any human who happened to be taking the order on that particular day.
Yeah.
Maybe the order taker didn't come in for work that day, and so the delivery person was taking the order, and maybe they weren't as familiar with it because it wasn't their normal job to take orders. But anyway, I believe that with the AI enhancement to this, it's able to do a really phenomenal job in that area. On the contact center, it also uses AI to judge how well that agent is performing. As an example, the tone of the voices, if it's a voice engagement, or the tone of the words, if it's some kind of a chat or email. Are they seeing indications that that customer is very pleased or that customer is very unhappy? And so they're using AI to do all of those kinds of things. So it is infused with AI. The other thing which Mike and I were talking about a little bit before the event was that Zoom is now talking about a system of action. And the system of action is that, okay, you've got all this interaction here. What are the tasks that need to be done? Whether it's a Zoom phone call, a Zoom meeting, or a Zoom contact center, is it actually pulling out those things that need to be accomplished after the call or after the meeting or after the contact center engagement? And who's going to do it and when they're going to do it and exactly what is to be done. So what the idea behind this is that we're going to make our companies much more responsive to the clients and the prospects by completing everything that we said we're going to do because we've captured it. And this is all being done with AI. And somebody else raised their hand.
Yeah, Robert's asked the question, and Robert, did you want to ask something else? I'll find Robert and we'll turn him on. We'll give him a microphone. Can you find it, Mike? Turn on his microphone. I don't know if I've given you permission. Are you important enough to be able? Yes, you are. No, he doesn't want to make a comment. But so what we've just been talking about, and I don't want you to feel that you got lost, dear viewer and listener. We've just talked about, well, let's just say that in the old days, you'd have an order form and then people started producing order forms on the internet. And then they had what they called sales funnels. Do you remember those? They're still around now, where people will subscribe to some webinar or some event. That's something that Mike and I are doing all the time. And they will have a flow of introductory emails. They will come to an event and then they will leave the event. And that's all well and good. But when you start talking about what Zoom Contact Center and Zoom Phone do, that means that you could have at the end of your event, you could have your sales team tasked to follow up all the clients. You could have them tasked to phone the clients before the event to make sure they're going to turn up. If you want to take an order, that's all available in Zoom as well. You could do it as a human, but as Elliot's shown, if you have a process, you can do it with an AI agent. You don't even need a human to take the order. If you're a small business, you can have a telephone number that people call and they can place orders online, so to speak, just by talking to an agent. And that agent can be a human or it can be an AI. This is an amazing thing. Maybe you think, oh, I don't want a computer answering my phone. I've got a very nice young lady who answers it very well. But what happens? I'm getting so excited here. What happens on your busy hour when the calls are coming in so quickly? She never has a chance to take all the orders. What if you could then have a backup AI taking the orders from the regulars who know exactly what they want to order and can go through an automated system with the AI? I think that for a lot of businesses, that would pay for itself in no time at all. And it's all possible with little Zoom. We've got one more question here. Can you talk about Zoom Contact Center as standard? Okay, so Elliot, there's obviously a lot of things that we've talked about here, and there's lots of different extras that we've got on the side. So can we strip it back down to what a basic Zoom phone allows us to do and what a basic Zoom contact center allows us to do without all the frilly bits, so they've got to see what you start with?
Sure. On Zoom Phone, you can have calls routed to members of your staff based upon whether they are looking for sales support, whether they're looking for actual product support, whether they're looking for billing information or whatever. And those are called call queues.
Okay.
And so if somebody comes in and says, I want to talk to somebody in sales, you can have them go. And if you have multiple products, you can even refine it further. So if you have products that are handled by different members of your staff, you could have one call queue that had to do with restaurant supplies. You have another call queue that might be dealing with office supplies or whatever. And so the members that you assign to those call queues, if it's somebody calling about restaurant supplies, you assign Fred, who knows all about restaurant supplies, to that call queue. And he would answer those kinds of calls first. If he wasn't around, then maybe Tom would answer those calls.
Okay.
And vice versa. If they were calling about office supplies and Tom was the person who was most knowledgeable, then those calls could be routed to Tom. When they call in to those call queues, that Zoom call can be recorded, it can be summarized, and tasks can be also generated from that call queue interaction. The same thing is true with Zoom Phone customer engagement. But what Zoom Phone customer engagement adds is that it adds information about what's going on with your contact center.
Okay.
How many calls are coming in? How many people are waiting in queues? Which queues have people that are actually being serviced on those queues? How many people are waiting on those queues? Other statistics, such as the average length of time it takes to answer the call, whatever. When you get and you need more sophistication, then you go up to the Zoom Contact Center. The Zoom Contact Center has more capabilities and has more channels. On the Zoom Phone customer engagement pack and Zoom Phone, it can handle both phone calls and SMS, MMS, but it doesn't handle them with the level of sophistication that you would get on Zoom Contact Center. And
Okay.
that's basically, I hope that I've answered it a little bit, but I
Yeah.
think we need like a whole session.
Oh,
because there's
we
a
could
lot of
probably run
interest
this every
on
week, couldn't
Contact
we?
Center.
Yeah. So let's just dial back a bit and talk about the licenses. So obviously you need a Zoom license, whether it's pro or business or corporate, for starters. And then if you've got a pro license, you would need to add Zoom Phone to that license to be able to make and receive calls.
Yes, and they have one of those licenses is like, I don't know, it's like for an extra few dollars, you can add Zoom Phone to a Zoom meeting type license.
Yeah.
Zoom offers different packages in the US and Canada, and they offer different packages for worldwide services. And you can see all of the pricing if you go to zoomphone.us and you select the country that you are originating those calls from, and it will give you the pricing. There's also another one that we didn't mention, and that is Zoom Phone Basic. Zoom Phone Basic is unique in that the price is zero. You must have at least one Zoom Phone paid license, but if you want, you can actually have a Zoom Phone Basic. Zoom Phone is basic because it's limited only to making internal calls. It can't call outside of your business,
Okay.
and they can't receive calls from outside of your business in general. But so you have Zoom Basic, basically free. You have Zoom Pro, which allows in the United States unlimited US and Canada calling, and on an annual basis, it's $16 a month, even if it's only one license. If you want to go to the business, it's a higher price, but they also throw in some additional features. And the global, you can get the global, and you can have a number in your country, and you can have a number in some other country. You have to abide by the individual country's requirements, but it gives you that kind of flexibility. There's also another one, which is a great bargain, which is Zoom International Calling. So you have, I think it's like 14 or 15 countries, like most of the countries in Europe. So like UK, France, Germany, Italy, a whole number of countries. For $10 a month, it's unlimited. Now I don't know in the United States it's $10 a month. I don't know what it is when you convert it to another currency. But at any rate, there's all sorts of possibilities. In the United States, Zoom Phone is generally much cheaper than phones from the local telephone companies. In Las Vegas, where I'm located, to get just a regular phone from the phone company is, I think, like around $25 a month. That same service is $16 a month on Zoom. Now, you still need internet access for Zoom, but even the internet access is getting to be relatively inexpensive, partly because there's a lot more people who are offering, as an example, 5G internet access.
Elliot, I could go on for hours, and I know we could go on for days even, but I think we may draw it to a close there. Except, of course, we have another user. There he is, Mike. You
Remember
are not
me?
yet, but I understand that you're balancing on a fence about when you should upgrade your office to Zoom Phone.
Yes. It is the bane in my side. And Ellie and I briefly talked about it in backstage. So that's what we were talking about. And then all of a sudden, Ellie made an amazing conversation about a product that I needed and had stalled me. The last time I was talking to Zoom was Zoom Phone Basic. Because in my situation, I have warehouses, Elliot, as you probably understand that type of scenario. So I have a warehouse that might want to make an outbound call and make internal calls extension wise, but it doesn't never ever need to be having an inbound phone number. So they were charging me, they wanted, again, at the time, Zoom only had Pro. So they wanted me to have in my warehouses Pro licenses. So that was one of the different scenarios that definitely 4 to 6 months ago, as Elliot and I was talking about, wasn't available. But as you can see, Zoom is doing its normal thing of always integrating and always upgrading and adding appropriate things. And to be fair, I was expecting that to be a cost. And when Elliot said the word free, he made me smile.
I should clarify that in the United States, we have some laws that anybody who needs to dial the emergency services 911 has to be able to dial those emergency services. So even if a user had only the Zoom Phone Basic, there has to be a capability to dial 911 in the United States. And the way that Zoom handles it is that you can have a small group of numbers. It could be on the, say, a Zoom metered plan. On Zoom metered plan, it's $10.50 a month as opposed to 15. And so you could actually have, let's say you had, I'll make it up, 20 phones that you only really wanted to have basic service, and all you need to do is to make internal calls. You could have maybe 2 or 3 phones that you would have as numbers which they could use in an emergency, all automatic. So you could save a fair amount of money there. And as I said, some people will go and they will use Zoom Phone metered as opposed to unlimited because maybe it's a break room or something, and they don't really need too many phones that can call outside, because if they want to, they could just walk around the corner and they could use somebody else's phone if they needed to. But if they had an emergency, they could dial 911 and that emergency call would go out as it should. And so they have ways to deal with it. But there are companies that they only need an internal call, and they really don't want their people being on the phone making outbound calls as opposed to doing whatever they're supposed to do. On the other hand, somebody in the warehouse that is on the loading dock has a legitimate call, a legitimate reason to be able to dial outward because maybe they need to tell that truck who's waiting a block away, hey, listen, we now have the space for you to come into the loading dock. But anyway, there's all sorts of things that one can do, and I think that Zoom can accommodate most situations, and I'll shut up now. Sorry.
See, I needed to talk to Elliot months ago. See, this is my problem. You see?
Even if I'm not the one selling it, I'm happy to provide any guidance that I know might help you or anyone else for that matter. And I don't think we mentioned, or you may have mentioned in other cases, John, that Zoom Community is a volunteer group.
Yeah.
Both John and I and Mike we're all members of Zoom Community. And so we volunteer our time to try to help people with Zoom, all the Zoom products. I spend a lot of my time on Zoom Phone, but if I see there isn't anybody asking a question on Zoom Phone, then I will venture over into Zoom meetings or whatever. And that's great. I think we have something like 400,000 members of the Zoom community. It's something, and it's some very large number. I can't remember the exact one, but people, even some people that have very sophisticated questions, somebody might be in charge of Zoom phone for Arizona State University, a very large university, and maybe they'll ask questions, or in some cases, they may be able to contribute answers. So,
Yeah, indeed. And I'd also like to mention Zoom Phone team have an office hours that they run. If you look it up on the Zoom portal, and there you can submit your questions in advance, or you can ask your questions on the chat, on the Q&A. And they have a reasonably large team. I don't know how many it was on the last call I was on, but it was at least half a dozen Zoomies there. And they were answering questions through the webinar live. Probably the ones they were choosing were the ones they thought would be most interest. But if you didn't get your question answered live, they were answering the Q&A questions at the same time. And they run that on, I believe, a weekly basis, an hour's worth of calls. So they're available too. And I have a feeling, for the sake of Mike, that we might have to do a few more of these Zoom phone related situations to encourage him.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, I'm, if it makes our IT life a lot easier for me to have everything into Zoom and then be able to flow out of Zoom, I'm game. I'm game.
Elliot, have you got any closing remarks or anything you've missed out you'd like to throw in before we finish?
I don't know whether I mentioned that new Zoom phone users are, at least in the United States, they're entitled to 3 1-hour sessions with a Zoom expert in getting some training to set up their system. Obviously, Zoom also has Zoom Professional Services, who do an outstanding job. So for a larger organization, maybe a few hundred people or so, then that's certainly something else that you might want to consider. Other things that I didn't mention are things like Zoom is well integrated with Microsoft Teams. So a lot of people, instead of using Microsoft Teams calling plans, actually use Zoom. Any rate, been a pleasure, and look forward to more of the same. I'm also obviously very interested in learning about other Zoom products. I don't think I mentioned Zoom faxing, but Zoom has online faxing in all countries. If you have a paid license, you can fax. The only 2 countries that it's not available are Japan and India, but it really works great, and they enhanced it dramatically over the last 6 or 7 months. So it's excellent. And thank you for your time, and thank you for your attendance.
And thank you, Elliot. And thank you for launching a whole new area of us to play around with in Lord Zoom Live.
Speaking of Lord Zoom Live, John,
there'll be Lord Phone Live as well now. Fantastic.
Does that mean we're gonna have to add that to this new slide? What do you think there, John?
Well, we have the great Josh Bragg coming on a regular Zoom events. Elliot, I think we may well have to have a monthly call dedicated to Zoom Phone and Contact Center and all the related bits and bobs as well. As if my life wasn't more exciting already.
That would be great.
Okay.
It looks like there's a little bit of room there, John.
Yeah, I can see a bit of space there. So I think Lord Zoom Live is going to have a dedicated phone show as well. Why not? It's a fantastic environment. And that only means we've got one more problem, Mike. Do we need another theme tune? Well,
Well, we might need we might need an outro.
might need another theme tune outro, indeed. So thank you very much, Elliot. Thank you for everybody who's contributed. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for those that are going to watch this later when YouTube puts it out available. And thanks, Mike, for keeping us all honest and on the screen at the right time. We finish now with our standard theme tune, I believe. But Zoom phone, it's worth a call.
It's worth a call. And it was worth the pun. See everybody next week.
Bye now.
Every week we open wide the virtual stage where ideas spark and wisdom fills the page. From the UK to the land of maple trees, John and Mike bring clarity with ease. We're building meetings, webinars with might, helping you shine your message, taking flight. Whether you're new or you've done this before, Lord Zoom Live will help you do much more. We're building meetings, webinars with might, helping you shine your message, taking flight. Whether you're new or you've done this before, Lord Zoom Live will help you do much more. Thank you for joining us, we're glad you're here. Together we grow, it's loud and clear. On Zoom we connect, we learn, we grow. Welcome my friend, enjoy the show. From big events to breakout rooms with flair, we've got the tools and we're ready to share. Guest experts drop in, bringing gold each time, with insights and tricks to help you climb. Can't make it live, we've got you still. On YouTube and LinkedIn, we're giving that thrill. So tune in later or catch us next round. Either way, your success is where we're bound. Thank you for joining us, we're glad you're here. Together we grow, it's loud and clear. On Zoom we connect, we learn, we glow. Welcome my friend, enjoy the show. And make it live, we've got you still. On YouTube and LinkedIn, we're giving that thrill. So tune in later or catch us next round. Either way, your success is where we're bound. Now take the spotlight, the stage is yours. Bring your message through virtual doors. Each week we gather, and now you know you're not alone, so let it flow. Thank you for joining us, now go and shine. Share what you've learned, your voice, your time. With Lord Zoom Live, your power will grow. It's time to build your own show.